Can you imagine that by the age of 33, you have made an impact on the lives of many people that you will forever change the course of history? Hi, my name is Angel, and today we're going to be talking about 4 key facts about Jesus. Today we're going to talk about the history of Jesus, the start of his ministry, teaching and disciples, his crucifixion, and the trauma it caused to his body. To start off, I would like to mention that I would include history and factual-based evidence of Jesus as a historical figure and on his teachings primarily about love. Josephus, who wrote the Antiques of the Jews in 94 AD, wrote Jesus as a wise teacher and a teacher that attracted many followers. He also mentioned things as now there was about a time Jesus, a wise man, that drew over to him both many of the Jews and many Gentiles. And he also mentions James, the half-brother of Jesus. And specifically he mentions, so he assembled the syndrome of judges and brought them the brother of Jesus, whose name was James, and some others. And when he had formed an accusation against them as brokers of the law, he delivered them to be stoned. And Kyle Butt is an author and co-author of many books, more specifically about the historical evidence surrounding Jesus. In 2004, he wrote Archaeology in the New Testament, which summarizes the archaeological findings of historical evidence surrounding Jesus. In this, he mentioned that at the start of his ministry, Jesus was around the age of 30, which was around 27 AD. He also mentions archaeological findings of the synagogue of Capernaum, which around the time the synagogue was found to be around the 4th or 5th century, but there was also another synagogue that dated back to Jesus' time. Another thing is the Nazareth excavations that look like Jesus' upbringing, which was very humble, so that's another thing. The teaching in his disciples. In the letters of Paul, it is mentioned that Jesus was a very Jesus had the main idea about love. In Galatians 5:14, he mentions, "For the whole law is fulfilled in one: you should love your neighbor as yourself." Jesus also was very the main idea surrounding community, responsibility, sacrificial love, and as I mentioned before, do unto others as you would do to yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself. In Galatians 6:10, it is mentioned, "Therefore, as we have the opportunity, let us do good for all people, and also rejoice those who rejoice, and weep for those who weep with us." This is important because in many relationships, there's somebody who needs us, or there's somebody that we always need, and therefore these verses could help us, share the love for one another and share the love for ourselves as well when we need it the most. Another thing is that in the letters of Paul, Paul mentions meeting with Peter, the disciples of Jesus, and he also mentions meeting his brother, his half-brother, as we mentioned before, James, and then there were many other later meetings with the disciples as well. In this, they talked about the church and new roles related to it. From a historical perspective, many scholars agree that Jesus of Nazareth was executed by crucifixion under Roman rule. For Christians, this event carries deep theological meaning, while in other traditions, there exist many interpretations of this. George Habermas and Jonathan Cave and I'm not sure whether Sean, they both made this peer-reviewed journal, basically explaining the Jesus' crucifixion, and in many of them they summarized the trauma that it caused to his body, beatings, wounds, and the Roman spear, and what essentially caused the death of Jesus. Many of the sources explain that Jesus might have died to asphyxiation. This was assembly of the sources. 24 sources specifically said that asphyxiation was the least trauma. Another thing was cardiovascular trauma, and then the brain and loss of blood, which is also known as a shock. And some others even said that there was not a death. And Today I've shared 4 key aspects of Jesus' life from a historical perspective. The accounts, the history of Jesus, the beginning of his ministry, his teachings and his disciples, and the circumstance of his death under Roman rule, and the trauma it caused to his body. I'm not here to talk about Jesus as a religious figure, nor am I here to explain what you should or shouldn't believe. Instead, I would like to invite you to consider the impact of Jesus' teachings and how it continues to shape our values today. Thank you so much.